Rookie of the Year and an All-Star and still only 22. He can impact the game in many ways. We all know the one way he can't. He's virtually zero offensive game outside. But if you're Philly, this is obviously what you do. You just hope that maybe he adds a little bit more from outside. We'll see. 76ers roster went through a major makeover during the season last year, but this is where they landed last year in the playoffs with the rotation. Simmons, Embiid, and Harris, the major holdovers, with the rotation players Mike Scott and James Ennis. The key additions to the squad, Al Horford and Josh Richardson. Tim Legler joins us now from New York City. Tim, let's start with Philadelphia. And we're talking about Ben Simmons here, and you got to extend him, but he can't shoot. That's the one thing he can't do. As a guy that made his living as a shooter, is that something you think Ben Simmons is ever going to learn how to do?
I personally don't think in his case it's going to be something that's going to happen because there's more than just mechanics. And that enough is a big enough issue for a 22-year-old that's been shooting a basketball the same way probably since he was 8 or 9 years old. But mechanics aside, I also think there's a wiring, from the brain to the hand that he doesn't really have, and that he doesn't think that way. He doesn't think about trying to find shots from those areas of the floor. The way he plays now feels very natural, and that's why Ben Simmons is saying, hey, it's worked out pretty well for me. I do a lot of things on the court. I was the #1 pick in the draft. I just got $170 million. I'm doing a lot of things right. If I don't get that last piece, okay, I'm still going to be a guy that's going to be a real force in this league.
And maybe you could say Simmons is emblematic of the Sixers. He's big. There's a lot to like. And I wonder who's going to shoot the ball late. I defer to you here. Is that a concern that you have about them big picture?
Yeah, it is a concern because, you need every team that's elite, that thinks they're going to win a championship, has to have that guy that can go get a shot in the mid-range area of the floor, basically anytime he wants to. I don't know who that guy is on the Sixers. I think, obviously their best offensive player is Joel Embiid, and I think there are ways you should be more creative and mandate certain things with where he catches the ball in important moments because he's going to be a load and a handful. The problem is I think Joel Embiid dictates on his own where he wants to go. So there's no doubt, Scott, that is something we're going to be talking about with this team all year. We have to see how that evolves and how they close games. The evolution of that will determine whether this team is legitimately a title contender or a team that we look at some point in the middle of the season and say they're just flawed. They don't have enough offensively. They're not complete enough to actually win it this year.
So I'm grabbing a bite to eat in the cafeteria, and I look up, and you're talking to Nagandi, and this says, if Kawhi re-signs with Toronto, who you have as the top team in the West, and you've got the Lakers as #1 in the West without Kawhi. So obviously, if they get him, forget about it. But even without him, just with LeBron and AD, you think that's enough because why?
The more I wrap my head around LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the floor together, okay, you're not just talking about two of the top, whatever you want to rank them. Let's no lower than both in the top 7. Some people might put them in the top 5 in the entire league. It's not just that. It's also the fact both of these guys can guard virtually anybody on the floor, and both of these guys can score from anywhere on the floor. So when I look at the number of boxes that those two guys and their versatility check off, I still look at them and say, how is some team going to be able to deal with those two guys? Because I know they are going to fill out this roster with a number of veterans that are going to fill a specific need in a specific role and be very accepting of it and going there specifically because they want to win a championship. I still think the Lakers have a great shot to ultimately be the best team. That doesn't mean, Scott, they'll be the #1 seed, but by the time we get to the postseason, this might be the team in the Western Conference that we look at and say they're going to be in the finals.
Fair enough. I can't offer a compelling argument otherwise, although I'm not as certain as you that they're going to fill out a roster with names that we know and go, oh, for sure, just because we're running out of guys. The way free agency is rapidly wrapping up. But we will see. In the meantime, enjoy the beach. Happy 4th. I don't know if you enjoy that as much as you enjoy Halloween. I hope so, because I know you love Halloween. Tim, good to visit with you. We'll talk again soon. All right, pal?
All right.
All right, to some baseball now. Yankees and Mets. Stanford Steve, this is called a hate bet, I think.
Sure is.
That's a hate bet.
I got a dream and it's all I see. I got my team and it's all I need.
James, lob for Davis. Here comes Kawhi.
Another assist for LeBron James.
James to winner. Big finish. James goes back door and finishes.
Joined out by Bobby Marks, we are about to enter day 3 of the NBA world held hostage by Kawhi Leonard. Give me something. Tell me anything.
Well, you're starting to see players come off the board, and players are not going to wait for Kawhi Leonard. You saw Jeff Green go to Utah.
Right.
Willie Cauley-Stein went to Golden State, and the holding pattern of players are about done with Kawhi Leonard right now. But there are players still out there like Danny Green, who sits in that holding pattern waiting for this man to make a decision.
Seems like everybody's going to Utah these days. Frank, the story is in Utah. How about giving just the inside, the general managers, the executives on the Clippers, the Lakers, the Raptors? They have to be annoyed. They have to be frustrated. There has to be some level of angst right now.
Well, all three are different, right? The Toronto has their full roster together. They don't really have any money to go out and spend, so they can keep that team intact. Same with the Clippers. They just went out and signed Rodney McGruder. They're starting to fill out that roster. Patrick Beverley 2 days ago. They've got the $33 million waiting for him.
Yeah.
Here's the question. The Lakers, right? 5 players under contract. They just signed Jared Dudley and Troy Daniels. They've got $33 million in room. They've got 9 roster spots. That's the big thing is if he does not come, and we'll walk you through it right now, this is with Kawhi Leonard.
This is with Kawhi.
$32 million in room. When we put Kawhi in, we'll take Troy Daniels out. This is your roster. Now, what is left is you have the $4.8 million room exception and the minimum market. And this is what we're looking at right now. These are your point guards, Rajon Rondo, TJ McConnell. So if we put Rondo in there, and let's just say for the minimum, your roster starts to balance out. So that potentially could be your starting 5 right now.
Pretty good starting.
Yeah, I mean, and then you've got the $4.8 million. You still have players like J.R. Smith, Justin Holiday. Maybe Andre Iguodala gets bought out of his contract, right? Contavious Caldwell-Pope. The names are starting to get there, but this is kind of where the names are. And if there is no Leonard, now this is the problem.
Right, but these 3 together, they don't lose too many games. They're not going to lose too many games with them on the court, right?
No,
right?
Not this starting 5.
Right.
That's a matter of how you fill out your bench.
All right, so let's take Kawhi out of there. How do we look then?
Well, now we're kind of just putting in names. Now we're probably looking at guys like Danny Green, putting in there. Possibly a player like Justin Holiday. We'll take Rondo out. We'll just fill in. But now you're just splitting up the $32 million where if you had done it, on July 1, this would have been more balanced. But as you know, you are going to wait for Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
you are going to wait for him.
I had a bunch of buddies text me this morning. There's a guy on television who looked a lot like you who said the Warriors aren't going to make the playoffs next season.
That's for another segment.
You said you're on the hook for that, right?
I'm on the hook for it, and I believe it. I think where the Western Conference is right now and where this roster is in Golden State, how restricted it is, with no Klay Thompson for probably a good chunk of the season, I don't think they make the playoffs.
Strong statement right there from this morning. And for tonight, as we all await the Kawhi signing. Bobby, thanks.